Finally, our illustrious leader, Joe Biden, has made his way to the U.S. border. Now, this itself is a little preposterous and pathetic. In fact, the Texas governor, Abbott, issued a statement essentially saying that, hey, buddy, you are 2 years too late and about $20 billion short in dealing with what needs to be done. And that is also kind of an understatement. Now, it may seem that in response to pressure coming from a lot of different quarters, in fact, there are a couple of Democratic leaders in Texas who have expressed outrage about the border. There's some outrage coming from Colorado, from Arizona. Even Senator Mark Kelly has made some unhappy noises about the border. Of course, we've seen complaints from Eric Adams in New York. Some of the other guys who have been receiving migrants and buses, they're like, something needs to be done about the border. And by the way, they didn't think anything needed to be done until these illegals started being dispatched to their shores and to their quarters. But now they think it's an emergency. They think it's a big problem now that they're showing up in New York and Martha's Vineyard. And so finally, Biden was like, okay, well, I'm going to go. But I think what is so telling is that even this trip to the border, which they could have made a kind of an honest listening trip, Biden goes there, he meets with families that live on the border. He talks to a wide range of people down there. He, in a sense, is on an information gathering trip so he can make decisions about the border, maybe better decisions than the one he's been making so far. But it's quite clear that this whole thing was staged. It's theater. It's a sham. Now, who's driving policy on the border? Well, the answer is a group of far left-wing attorneys that represent these groups that want essentially an open border. They're the ones who are making the policy. They're driving the action. And the Biden administration, all it's doing is putting out statements. And KJP, the press spokeswoman, is a very good example of this. She makes these ridiculous statements like, Biden's been working on the border since day one. It's a big priority for Biden. He never ceases worrying about the border. And you just get the feeling that you're listening to numbing propaganda from these people. They know that the border is a kind of an open sore. They've created it that way. They have political reasons for doing it. And this whole trip is a kind of a, well, I don't know if you're familiar with the term Potemkin Village. A Potemkin Village is when people would visit the Soviet Union in the 20th century in the old days, and the Soviets would like put on a show. So you wouldn't actually see life in the Soviet Union. You wouldn't see how people actually live. But what you would see is fine receptions, a lot of Russian caviar and cocktails. And you would talk to people who are basically actors. And they'd be like, I am very happy with life under communism. It is excellent. I'm getting a very fine education. My son is studying the ballet. So this is what U.S. visitors and Western visitors would be subjected to. And a few of them, usually the more gullible or the people who wanted to be fooled, were fooled. Well, I think with the Biden thing, no one is really fooled. In fact, now with social media, a lot of people have put out photos, including Myra Flores and others, basically showing, hey, listen, this is the border. In fact, this is El Paso before Biden got here. What do you see? Basically encampments, people sleeping on the street, all kinds of tarps. And essentially, it's difficult to even walk on the street without stepping over bodies. That is the real El Paso. That's what the citizens of El Paso are living with. And then El Paso the day before Biden. Turns out it's cleaned up. Suddenly all the tarps are gone. There are no bodies on the street. You don't have to step over anyone. There are no like street campfires where people are either warming themselves or cooking. And so for Biden, this was a completely staged event. Biden comes in, you see him walking around with some border control guys. The border control guys are, quote, briefing him. And then, very interestingly, apparently as soon as Biden left, a whole bunch of illegals were released back onto the street. So they were taken off the street. Apparently, there were some buses that dispatched a bunch of them back to Mexico temporarily. And then as soon as Biden was gone, it was, you can call it life, went back to normal. The same chaos that is always at the border returns to the border. By the way, the Border Patrol Union was having none of this. They've been putting out a series of statements. El Paso being cleaned up as if nothing unusual ever happened there, just in time for Biden's visit to the border. We suggest that Biden just land in Des Moines, Iowa, and just tell him it's El Paso. He'll never know the difference. So you can see here that not only are these Border Patrol guys against what Biden is doing, they're just contemptuous of him because they know what the kind of desecration that he has done of U.S. immigration policy. So, Myra Flores, El Paso clears downtown of expansive migrant camps ahead of Biden visit. Why not show him what our border community and law enforcement officials are dealing with on a daily basis? Well, the reason is Biden doesn't want to know. They don't want to show him. In that way, Biden can leave. He can say, I went there. I saw for myself. I talked to a bunch of people. I'm well informed. And Biden's horrible policies at the border will then continue unabated.